Hello and welcome to Get Settled here. This discussion about a new endeavor that we're launching called the hangoutschool.com. Uh, Real quick, a little bit about myself. I'm a father of two kids, and due to health reasons, which I won't bore you with, we had to look for alternatives when it came to educating the kids, and we also had to um, take a hard look at the possibility of doing homeschooling. And we wound up actually looking at the whole scenario, which I'm sure a lot of people have similar situations in their families. Decided to go ahead and kind of do, not kind of, but actually do homeschooling, at the same time participate in a school which they call ALE, which stands for Alternative Learning Environment. And all this experience basically showed me that there's a lot of families out there. I met a lot of people already that are really having problems with existing education system, especially when it comes to kids. Although some of the similar challenges can be addressed to adults as well. And one of the problems is the fact that public schools adhere to a certain amount of political pressure the way they do things. So they teach things that are not always just academic, which a lot of parents don't like so much because in some cases it's religious. Their religious beliefs are not being met the way they like it to be met. In other cases, the actual politics of the school district or that particular school is not exactly congruent with um, parents' beliefs. In other cases, just individual teachers. So you have this situation where you're sending a child to school. You really don't have that much choice in terms of which school the children can go to when it comes to public schools. Curriculum itself is also, in many cases, leaves some or a lot to be desired when it comes to curriculum. And you have situations like I mentioned with kids who have health issues, where they cannot attend school, even though they could potentially do school work at home, like homeschoolers do. They could not attend school, physically going to a building on a consistent basis. So all these problems that exist kind of facilitated me being a person in technology as my main 9 to 5 job, to think about alternative methods of doing teaching and doing learning, especially, like I said, for kids. And one of the things that Google is doing, in addition to everything else they're doing, is they have this really extensive program called Google for Education, and they have a lot of materials, a lot of time and effort and money they spent in creating a really unique and at the same time very potent learning environment for programming computers, for education in general, in terms of using technology for education. And the technology that's available today, including things like Google Plus, Google Hangouts, including services like Google Apps for Education, for example. In my particular school where my son goes, Google gave us 10,000 free accounts on Google Apps for Education, where we can use their Google Classroom um, software, which is phenomenal. It's an online service, a bunch of other basically resources, email, social media, things like that. So, in other words, there are definitely tools out there that enable you to create a really extensive and really potent learning environment. At the same time, the technology such as Google Hangouts allows you to participate in a video conference environment, which can be run from anybody's home or from local Starbucks or from somebody's office. So it really facilitates a very rich experience, interactive experience in being able to communicate something to somebody, being able to interact with them. And to make it even more potent, they also added things like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, where you can actually not only collaborate on those at the same time, but you can also bring them into the same video conference environment, into the Google Hangout. And then, of course, you're able to collaborate. A bunch of kids can be working on a single document or a spreadsheet or a presentation, literally from the comfort of their own homes. And this kind of capability really opens up all kinds of possibilities for learning, whereby you can really have tremendous number of classes. You can have very varied classes, and you can really, with inclusion of videos, with inclusion of text-based materials, documents, you can expand education tremendously compared to what's being done right now, and certainly improve on it. And so what I decided to do was to start my own endeavor, and that's what I'm calling hangoutschool.com, which is what we're going to talk about today. You can go to any point to hangoutschool.com website and get some more details. But let me start this presentation right now and just kind of quickly talk about various aspects of what hangoutschool.com is, so you can get a better idea. So the easiest way to look at it is, as it says on the screen, hangoutschool.com is a better place to learn and teach, because it's an environment not only for students or people learning, it's also an environment for people who tutor and who teach, because they can come to this same place and facilitate the learning. And somebody needs to be teaching it. This is not a Khan Academy type situation where you have videos and you learn from videos. It's a very different, it's basically, the easiest way to describe it, I tried to set it up to be exactly the same environment as you would have in regular school, whereby you have a teacher, live teacher, and this teacher is talking to you. You can see they're talking to you right there on the screen. And at any point in time, you can raise your hand, and they can see that you raised your hand, and you can ask a question, and you can participate in a dialogue, and you can collaborate with other students in the same class. You can have up to 10 people in the same class, so it'll be 9 students and a teacher potentially, but it's not going to be more than that in a single class. And it's a combination of limitation of technology, but more importantly, the concept of having smaller size classes, because then teachers can dedicate more time and more energy to a particular one or several students, and thus improve education that much more to make sure they get everything. Also, these classes can, and many of them will be recorded on video, so they can be subsequently looked at. Looking at the videos after the fact would not be interactive, but at the same time, the regular classes will definitely be. So it's no different than sitting in school and talking to a teacher. The only difference is that you're not sitting in school, you're sitting in the comfort of your home or office, and essentially doing the same thing. You have your materials there that can be on the screen, videos to supplement documents. I mean, it's going to be a very media-rich environment. And so we'll just go through the slides here that I prepared and go through it. So what exactly is it? So as I already mentioned, it's an online learning environment. And the nice thing about that kind of setup is that you really don't have any limitation in terms of how many classes and what kind of curriculum you can have. In regular schools, you have a limit because you only have X amount of teachers for X amount of students. You have only so much physical room in school, and there's all these limitations you have to deal with. In this particular case, you don't have any of these limitations. You have literally, as more and more teachers signed up to teach classes here at hangoutschool.com, then as students, you have that many more choices to constantly pick. You may have, for example, several teachers teaching math, but they might be using a different curriculum that, in your opinion as a parent, you like more, and so that's the curriculum you tend to pick, or you like the teacher better. So you'll have a lot more choices in both curriculum and teachers by going this route. The school obviously is, because it's an online environment, it's always there. So in terms of actual live classes, probably there's not going to be any at night, but certainly they could be. There would be a way to watch the videos of prior classes, and that would always be available to people who are part of Hangout School. In terms of, there's a lot of things I already mentioned about the fact that people don't like public schools. Some people, anyway, don't like public schools because of their policies and because of some of the politics involved. and bureaucracy that exists there, and don't get me started on that. So this, I want to make sure that everybody clearly understands that this hangoutschool.com is not going to have any of that. So it's strictly about teaching and learning and nothing else. There's not going to be any political stuff. There's not going to be any kind of slant where somebody wants to instill somebody with certain way point of view or anything like that. Me myself, coming from the old Soviet Union experience, I never want to see any kind of indoctrination at all. So it's going to be completely strictly for learning purposes and teaching and nothing else. And also, I wanted to make sure that the school is affordable for the students, but also the teachers get paid well compared to what they get paid in school. So it's going to be a combination of both affordability for students and teachers being able to make a living doing this. So that's kind of what hangoutschool.com is. In terms of who is it for, there's many different kinds of people that might want to participate here. But just to put a couple of points out there for you, anyone who wants to learn anything they want to learn, as long as there is a class at hangoutschool.com for whatever you're trying to learn, then you can sign up and you can participate in it. The school, as I mentioned, will have fewer students per class, so smaller classes would facilitate better learning. You're going to have better curriculum choices, so people who are looking for better curriculum, smaller classes, all these people are people who would might be interested in participating in hangoutschool.com. Anybody who doesn't like public schools, this would be a place they could come, because we're going to try to keep everything that's positive about public schools here and eliminate anything that's negative about public schools. Anybody who has some health-related issues, for example, just to use my own family, like I said, my son occasionally has some problems where he winds up being at home for a few days, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. He's not in any kind of situation where he can't do anything. He just cannot, in that particular case, he cannot walk. And that's why he can't make it to school. But being in bed doesn't prevent him from pulling up a Chromebook with a webcam built in and jumping into a class and totally participating in classes, doing homework, everything. He can do everything, in my case, that he needs to do. He just cannot physically get to school. So this way he can physically get to school without any problems. And so any other people or kids who have some health issues that are long-term or even short-term can definitely benefit from having this ability to get to school right in your home, essentially. And of course, for adults, you can also take classes from office. It's not going to be just for kids or anywhere else you might be. So now with Starbucks rolling out Google Fiber in most of their locations, as long as you have a good internet connection and you have a fairly decent computer, or something like a Chromebook, which is something I definitely recommend because they're both affordable and perform really well, then you're set. You don't need any more than that. Just a decent internet connection. It doesn't have to be phenomenal. It just needs to be fairly good broadband connection. And then that's all you need to be able to participate in school. So that's pretty much who it's for, pretty much anybody who wants to learn. In terms of talking about why you should consider this particular environment for students, you get to pick from, constantly growing list of classes, because we're going to be constantly looking for new teachers, new classes, new choices, to try to give you as many choices as possible, and to try to, the idea is to pretty much line up so many teachers and so many classes that essentially you have a schedule. There's going to be a calendar that you'll be able to look at, and you'll be able to see exactly what classes are there, look at the curriculum for these classes, and really make intelligent choices regarding which ones you want to participate in. But have so many of them, even similar classes, but just in different times, different days, to make it really easy for you to make it work within your schedule. Because everybody's busy, everybody's doing their thing, and so it's important, in my view, to have flexibility of and have as many choices as possible in as different time frames as possible. And then, of course, it'll be interactive real teacher-based environment, meaning we're not doing videos as a teaching method. There's actually going to be real life teachers that will be answering your questions, that will be trying to explain things to you. And if you don't get it, they're going to try to explain it just like you would do in regular school, where you have a teacher that you can ask something and they can work with you and talk to you and try to make sure that you learn what you need to learn. And so it's just like being in real school, except you're being at home or being in the office. And again, location, totally up to you where you want to learn from. The teacher situation with teachers would be such that there will be ratings available every single teacher and for different classes that they've taught. And there's going to be statistics. So you can easily look and see that here's all the math teachers, and there's going to be a rating for each teacher from 1 to 5 stars. And so you can really see based on prior, initially it's going to be not as much as telling as going forward, because initially nobody knows, as they haven't taught any classes yet, to have history available for statistics at the Hangout school. They've taught somewhere else, but at the Hangout school. But what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see their bias to start with of all the teachers that are out there. And also we plan to do, we're going to record videos with every single teacher that it'll be a very short video, just a few minutes long, talking about what they've done, what kind of education they have themselves, and why they should be considered by you to trust them to send your kids to their classes or go yourself to their classes. So the idea would be that you can really make an educated choice in terms of the teachers looking at their bias, looking at what they've done, and then going forward as they teach more and more classes, then a couple of things are going to happen. After each class, we're going to facilitate a survey and ratings from both the parents and the students who are taking the lessons, if it happens to be kids. And then based on this feedback and based on these ratings, we're going to then determine if this teacher is going to continue to be working with us at the Hangout school or not. The idea being that we want to welcome just about any teacher that is interested, or any tutor that is interested, that first of all has credentials to do so, or ability to do so, and has the skills to do so. But more importantly, that when they come on board to do this, then these ratings and these surveys will enable us to determine whether we want to continue with that person or find somebody else instead of them, to make sure that we only keep on an ongoing basis really stellar teachers and tutors that are well liked by both parents and by the students on a continuous basis. So we want to definitely make sure that both the integrity and quality of what's being taught is at the very high level, as high level as we can make it. And so even though we don't necessarily say you have to be an accredited teacher to teach at hangoutschool.com, we do say that you need to be good both in your bedside manners, as you'd say, and at the same time in terms of what you teach. So we're definitely going to try to do the best we can to keep the best teachers out there on a consistent basis. And then because of these surveys, that's what's going to be the driving factor. So people who take classes will be the determining factor whether a teacher continues to work with hangoutschool.com or not. And of course, we need to take into consideration the fact that, you always may have somebody here and there saying something that's not exactly so. So it's not going to be, in other words, we're going to be looking at a bunch of different things and looking at some of these classes and making sure that the teacher quality stays where it needs to be. And then, as I mentioned, one of the other reasons to consider this particular way of taking classes or being tutored is because of videos that were done before. Right now, we don't have any because we're just starting. But as we get going forward, then you'll see more and more availability of videos for people who participate in these classes. So why should teachers or tutors consider hangoutschool.com? Pretty simple. I mean, I think I already mentioned most of the things. Number one is that you're in total control. We're not going to tell you what curriculum to teach. We're not going to tell you how to teach. We're not going to tell you anything. We're not going to tell you how to live. you basically coming into us as a teacher or a tutor with some credentials and some past, that you where you can show that what you've done would be worthwhile for this school as well. And as long as we can see and after we talk to you that it makes sense, then we'd be glad to have you here. But we're not going to tell you what to do because that's your specialty, not our specialty. I myself am information technology pro. That's what I do. I can teach some classes when it comes to programming, when it comes to system design, databases, things like that. But I cannot teach classes in math. I cannot teach classes in English um, literature or Spanish or anything else. I could teach Russian, I guess, but I'm not going to. So basically, it's going to be one of these things where people are going to be doing what they know best, and we're not going to get in their way. So you're in total control as a teacher. Not going to be any hassles. Not going to be any politics, and you will get to select materials and curriculum that you feel appropriate for your classes. You will select as a teacher or tutor how many classes you want to teach, when you want to teach, how often you want to teach. All of this is going to be totally up to you. Whatever you determine, whatever you're comfortable with, that's exactly what we're going to go with. And then we will provide full training and support because you may be a great teacher, but you may not be an expert in Google Hangouts. So we're going to teach you and spend time with you to make sure that you know what you need to know to be able to teach. We're not going to be going and making you an IT pro. We're just simply going to teach you how to use the tool to make it the most beneficial both for you and for your students. And also troubleshoot any issues, help you with the selection of the proper hardware, microphones, things like that. There's a bunch of options to be considered. So we're definitely going to be there to support you and train you. So that's that. And pretty much we're going to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of here, which means that you don't need to worry about anything. Just you simply teach. That's all you do. You come to classes, you teach. So that's why teachers and tutors might want to consider joining us. And then so the question becomes, okay, so if we have students doing their thing and you got teachers doing their thing, what exactly are you going to do? I guess that's the question you might ask me. And so we're going to be, think of me and us, Hangout School, however you want to look at that, as the middle people who don't really interfere with anything but facilitate everything. So one thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be definitely looking constantly and promoting hangoutschool.com and looking for best teachers and tutors we can find anywhere. Because of this being an online environment, I spoke, for example, a few months ago to a teacher in Idaho. He's a history teacher. And the gentleman indicated, after a short conversation with him, it was very clear that he's got exactly the right attitude in terms of how to teach, in my opinion. And at the same time, he's got history in terms of who he taught for how long, and he taught in public schools for many years. And clearly, the gentleman is extremely, extremely intelligent and astute on the subject. We talked about a couple of different things. Just very smart gentleman. And so those are the kind of people that I'd like to find, and other people involved with me would be working in the same direction to find the teachers and tutors to allow to have the people who are considering taking classes to be served as best as they can. So I'm facilitating the finding of teachers to match them with that. In addition to that, of course, we'll be promoting the school itself online and in other areas, just to let know homeschoolers. It's an ideal environment for them, because if you think about it, I'm a parent, okay, and I decided that my child is going to be going through homeschooling, but at the same time, no matter how much I fool myself, and I don't fool myself, I usually look at things the way they are. I'm not a teacher, not a teacher of math, not a teacher of language arts, not a teacher of English history, for example, or U.S. history, I should say. I'm not. I don't know sufficient amount of information about that to actually teach somebody. And so with that being the case, for people like myself, who's a parent looking to do homeschooling, I really need somebody else to do the teaching. And yes, I can buy some kind of product or set of discs or whatever and have all these worksheets and my kids can go through them. We go through them together. It's not the same. Going through a bunch of worksheets, it's not the same as learning from a real teacher, being able to talk to somebody who's qualified, who's done it before, who's good at it. I mean, there's no substitution. You cannot substitute one for the other. And I know that a lot of parents will disagree with me, and they make great homeschooling teachers for their kids. And I'm not going to argue with anybody. I'm just saying, for me personally, I'd like to have the flexibility and the capabilities that technology brings, and the convenience of doing it from home and everything. But I would also like to have my children be taught by professional teachers and tutors, okay, in their respective subjects. So when it comes to teaching them about computers, I don't have any problems teaching about that, because that's my livelihood. I know this extremely well. I have taught classes myself. I've taught classes for Boeing employees, in a number of projects that school. There's a special online school, not online, but offline school actually, specifically for Boeing employees, and so they hired me to teach some programming classes. So I have done it before, and I can do it again, not a problem. But I can't teach my kids the core stuff that they need to learn. And so because of that, instead of looking for some kind of worksheet curriculum that somebody used and somebody likes and somebody doesn't, I prefer to have a really good teacher that will do exactly what typically is done in school. So I kind of use a combination of both. You have a real teacher teaching you, and then you also have the benefits of technology. That's the game plan here. And so we would find these teachers. We would facilitate also training them to make sure that they know exactly how to use the technology involved, and on all things related to the Google Classroom, Google Apps for Education, on Google Hangouts, on Google Documents. There's a lot of Google stuff, as you can hear, and that's because Google did a tremendous job of creating this kind of environment available to teachers. And a lot of teachers use these tools in many school districts, so it's not just used outside of schools, but at the same time, it's very potent, it's very capable, and that's what we're going to use here as well. So the teachers who are coming on board, they don't need to know any of this. We'll teach them, we'll get them going. And we're not going to teach them on everything. We're just going to teach them on what they need to know to be able to do what they do. That's all. So it's not going to be any kind of huge computer learning class or anything. It's actually a lot simpler in many ways than you think. So if you're a teacher, don't be afraid. If you're not into technology, we'll get you up to speed to a level where you need to be able to do this properly. We also will handle all the registration and tracking for everybody. So we track all the teachers, we track all the students, we take care of notifying them, communicating with them. So we'll be the communication hub, so to speak, between the parties as well. Also, we're going to take care of all the financial transactions. So we're going to make sure that teachers get paid. We're going to make sure that the students pay their tuition appropriately. So we're going to facilitate all of that from here. Also, we're going to be taking care of the surveys, as I mentioned before, and tabulation. So the information is totally transparent, available to anybody who wants to see, rating for the teacher and rating for their classes and how many classes they've taught and so on and so forth. All of this, it needs to be done by information technology people, which is us. So we're going to take care of that as well. And of course, we're going to also maintain the calendars that need to be maintained online. So you can take a look and see what classes are available. So you can sign up for classes, forms for sign up, all that stuff. We're gonna facilitate handling and managing and making sure all of that stuff is done. So that's what we're gonna do as hangoutschool.com ourselves. And ultimately, like I said, when I said we're gonna facilitate hiring and firing of teachers, that's gonna be based, to some degree on the personal information, but mostly on their background, what they've done, and any kind of references. So we're not going there blind, or we're not strictly taking our own opinion that this guy is just a great teacher and we need to use him because we feel that he's a great teacher. It's going to be based on real information. And then subsequently, even if somebody accidentally slips through our initial checking and cross-checking, then the ratings from students and parents will quickly identify if somebody needs to go or somebody should definitely stay and things like that. And of course, we're also going to reward quality performance more so than not. So the teachers that are better teachers will definitely get compensated better, and so on and so forth. So in terms of details about compensation and everything else, if you're a teacher interested in signing up, just contact us through hangoutschool.com and we'll be in touch. We can talk about all of that. In terms of how much classes will cost, it'll vary depending on the situation, depending on the class, and there's several other aspects of it. But I can say that the classes will start. There's some classes we may run that will be for free. For example, I was thinking about doing some classes for kids that will run for free. There are going to be other classes that will probably start likely at about $10 per class, and I don't envision anything going beyond at this point beyond $20 per class. So we want to keep it extremely affordable, much more so than just about any other school I've seen, and at the same time be very reachable by just about everybody. And so anybody who wants to participate can, and the pricing is not going to become an issue for them to participate. So with that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to look into this and consider this. If you're interested in learning or teaching at hangoutschool.com, please go to the URL www.hangoutschool.com, and there's a couple of forms you can fill out either as a student or as a teacher, and then we'll take it from there. And then we'll be in touch immediately after that as soon as you fill out the appropriate forms there. If you have any questions for me personally, you're welcome to reach me on Google+. I'm easily found. My name is Oleg Moskalansky, and you can easily find me by my name. Also, you can just find me through hangoutschool.com by contacting us through there. So I thank you again for your time, and until we talk next time,